The magical girls of hatred, despair, greed, and wrath. The Jester of Nihil and the Hermit of the Azure forest. Tipperar's flaw is a bit different as compared to the rest when it comes to its abnormalities. They all have one major theme: Maho Shoujo. It's also different from the majority of other flaws as all 5 of its abnormalities are directly linked to one another. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to the start and talk about something simple: tarot cards and their relation to the abnormalities. Some of you may still feel a little bit skeptical about people referencing the tarot cards. Maybe you feel like people are just overthinking things or pointing out groundless confirmations. Well, I hope I can change that. In Library of Ruina's artbook, Volume 1, page 41, one of the developer's notes is this: like the Jester taking his step in the Major Arcana card, will there be a cliff awaiting Roland underfoot, or perhaps it's only a shallow ditch? In addition, in Lobotomy Cooperation, the Queen of Hatred actually has a few voice lines that directly reference the tarot cards. The Queen of Hatred even shares some moves between Library of Ruina and Lobotomy Corp that literally have Arcana in the name. For those of you less knowledgeable when it comes to tarot packs, a tarot deck is made up of 78 cards split into 2 categories, the Major Arcana making up the 22 trump cards of the deck and the Minor Arcana the remaining 56 suit cards. What differentiates these two? Well, in a regular card game, the major cards hold larger value. However, in fortune telling, the Minor Arcana reflect day-to-day events, while the Major Arcana reflect major life events and milestones. So personally, I would say that these references were intended and clearly meant to portray something. The Queen of Hatred, Knight of Despair, King of Greed, and the Servant of Wrath all represent the 4 court cards of the Minor Arcana: Queen, Knight, King, and Page. We also know that each magical girl is based on a specific suit, thanks to the Jester of Nihil, as every time he changes between phases, a specific French suit is shown on screen. The Queen of Hatred would be the Queen of Cups, also known as the Queen of Hearts. The Queen of Cups, when upright, represents compassion and emotional well-being, in the same way that the Queen of Hatred goes out of her way to protect others, even to the point of sacrificing herself when encountering elf threats. However, when reversed, the Queen of Cups represents codependency and a lack of self-love. It even suggests that a person may be fostering a dependency in others to feel needed, similar to how the Queen of Hatred needs evil to exist. The Knight of Despair would be the Knight of Swords, which represents ambition and eagerness. In the Encyclopedia of Lobotomy Corp, she is stated to have dedicated her entire life to defending the king, the weak, and the entire city, upholding the laws of God while pursuing valor, chivalry, and justice. A pretty ambitious idea, I would say. Reversed, it represents restlessness and impulsiveness. After a series of conflicts and incidents, she realized that she had done nothing for the people. She was far too ambitious and her goal would never be fulfilled. So she impulsively pointed her swords at those she could not protect. And all that was left was a hollowed, weathered pride. The King of Greed would be the King of Pentacles or the King of Diamonds, which represents wealth, leadership, and security. The King of Greed started off as someone who believed in their self-control and rationality, wishing for everyone's happiness. However, when reversed, it represents greed and obsession with wealth and status. In the end, she wished for her own happiness, always wanting more and always feeling empty. The Servant of Wrath would be the Page of Wands, which represents a free spirit and one who is open-minded. As a magical girl who upholds justice, she makes an exception and becomes friends with a villain, a sinner, and a Major Arcana, the Hermit of the Azure forest. Reversed, it can represent failed ventures and usually results in the person expressing that venture in another manner, basically retrying it. This is seen in Wonderlab, where the servant tries to make new friends, but they always end the same way, as the hermit. Of course, these are not 100% accurate. Tarot cards take a lot of interpreting in the first place, and I'm interpreting those interpretations. There's definitely a lot of confirmation bias here, so let me know what you think in the comments below. One more thing, I personally think that there probably aren't any more magical girls to come, outside of Aberrants. Think about it. All 4 magical girls fit into the 4 face cards of the Minor Arcana and are all part of a different suit. It fits perfectly as it is. The only other possibility is if there is a magical girl for every combination of a suit and Minor Arcana, which is actually somewhat possible. The Queen of Hatred knows the King of Greed and Knight of Despair personally. She even treats them with a huge amount of respect, calling them her senpais. They likely belong to the same world, defending the same people. However, the Servant of Wrath is likely an outsider, someone outside of their group. The Knight of Despair's encyclopedia page reads, "The truth changed a lot of people. One who fought for good became evil upon realizing that there was no evil left in the world. One who dreamed of a world where everyone could be happy was tinged with greed and started to devour everything. The one who fought for good and became evil is obviously the Queen of Hatred, while the one who fought for happiness but was tinged with greed is the King of Greed. Notice how there's no mention of the Servant of Wrath. The Servant of Wrath is noted to have come from her own world, another realm. If there are different realms and even worlds in the Magical Girls universe, is it really that hard to believe that there may be another 52 Magical Girls somewhere out there? But that's all conjecture. I do hope we see another, but I think the likelihood of that is quite low. And even if they did exist, it's likely that they aren't the idealized perfect magical girls either. The King of Greed's encyclopedia page reads this: "Once there were people who tried to change the world. We all remember them. We remember how they met their downfall. Desires. I know of desires that ruin all things. The desire to be the hero. The desire to protect. The desire to fill the hunger inside. The desire to have friends. The magical abilities one obtains has been, and always will be, tainted by desire." And that's about all I can cover when it comes to the Minor Arcana and the Magical Girls. Now, moving on, I should probably talk about the Major Arcanas and the villains. Everybody already knows about the Jester of Nihil and its relation to the Fool. They share overarching themes of nullity and apathy in the Fool's reverse form, but also its limitless potential in the Fool's upright form. The flavor text during the realization especially emphasizes on the Fool's reverse, showing how contradictory it really is. The Jester is reckless but also overly cautious. However, the Jester still follows its upright position's interpretation of being limitless and a jack of all trades. In the realization, he switches between 4 different forms, all heavily based on one of the 4 magical girls. Now, did the Jester slowly come to resemble the 4 girls, or did the 4 girls begin to resemble the Jester? That's up for you to decide. But there's one major part I didn't quite get in their fight. The statues. Now I know, it could just be a game thing just to make sure the player gets a choice of which librarian to replace with which magical girl. But all the statues have different names, there has to be something, right? Nope, they all have some kind of connection to being petrified or still in place, and that's it. If anyone has any idea on what those statues mean, leave them in the comments below, cause I have no clue. Moving on, let's talk about the only other major arcana we meet, the Hermit of the Azure Forest. This one is directly linked to the Servant of Wrath pretending to be her friend until the time was right, where she brought her minions and staves to destroy the Servant's world. Now, Project Moon took some liberties with this major arcana, I think. The Hermit's story focuses heavily on how friends are to use and be used by. There is no genuinity to the friendship, only selfish gains. This represents the Hermit's reverse position, cutting herself off from others and preventing herself from making genuine connections and isolating in a less literal sense. However, we do have to note that nothing about her represents the Upright Hermit. The Upright Hermit focuses on self-reflection and soul-searching along with true isolation and being alone. The Hermit doesn't follow any of these, unlike the Jester with the Fool. The Hermit first of all has minions, making it difficult for her to truly isolate. Second, the Hermit doesn't have a single line in Wonderlab or Library of Ruina that points to her being a particularly introspective person. All of her lines focus on mocking the Servant of Wrath, deriding her for believing that they were true friends or politely asking others to move aside so that she can face the magical girl. Now, unlike the magical girls, it's actually pretty obvious that there's a lot more villains that we haven't seen yet. Of course, there's 26 major arcanas, all with their own card designs and cryptic symbolism. I really hope we see more of those, the Lover, the Wheel of Fortune, Death even. All of them have interesting designs and even more interesting interpretations. But we're probably going to have to wait and see. And with that, I think I'm done talking about the individual characters, I hope at least. If there's anything you think I missed, do put them down in the comments below. My interpretations of the arcanas are extremely specific, so I may be missing out on the more vague, elusive bits that are more obvious to you guys. But now, I want to focus on how detailed Project Moon went with their symbolism. As mentioned, the magical girls are represented by the Minor Arcana, which seems like a minor detail. Villains are represented by the Major Arcana, as they are likely stronger than most of the magical girls individually. It's just a measurement of strength. In my opinion, this isn't quite it. The Minor Arcana represents day-to-day events. You'll likely see these magical girls on a regular basis as they are heroes, patrolling the streets, saving people, and defeating villains. The Major Arcana represents major life events. A villain only shows up once in a while as compared to the magical girls. You'd probably see a villain much less. They're more abnormal parts of your life. Project Moon really did their research here. They hit the mark on a lot of references and small details that they just wouldn't have made without thoroughly researching tarot decks. Pretty cool. Of course, there's also the much more obvious stuff. The Knight of Despair's swords point towards the Knight of Swords, the Hermit's staff, and the Page of Wands. The King of Greed and King of Diamonds is another one that is pretty on the nose, showing the girl's materialistic nature. Jester of Nihil and the Joker in a deck. The Jester is able to switch between the 4 different suits representing the Joker's wildcard status in certain rules of playing card games. I thought most of you guys would already know about those already, so I kinda just skimmed over them and didn't talk about them that much. And that's about it for this video. I spent literal months trying to make sure that my interpretations make sense and that I like the way they turned out. And honestly, I'm not exactly unhappy. If you do have a different perspective on things, do leave it down in the comments below. Make sure to visit again, yeah? I'll see you guys later.